be with you.
And also with you.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
When the days drew near for Jesus to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers ahead of him. On their way they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. But they did not receive him, because his face was set towards Jerusalem. When his disciples James and John saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" And Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then they went on to another village, and as they were going along the road, someone said to Jesus, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to them, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But they said, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to them, "Let the dead bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." And Jesus said to them, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of Christ.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Lord, your light is bright. May it illuminate our minds and bodies and spirit. Amen. Music is a powerful way that we experience learning and growing and connecting. And I really connect well with Mercer and his music. And one of his favorite songs that I have let a few people know is, "Should it come my time to pass, would you sing it, Brian, or play it at my funeral, but I'm in no rush." And it goes like this. "I'm carrying a torch for you. You know how much it costs to keep carrying a torch. Flame of love, it burns so bright. You're the keeper of the flame, and you burn so bright." Elijah has carried a torch, a flame of love that burned brightly in the midst of a lot of hardship and pain. He has carried God's word, whether it was popular or not. It was the light he was called to carry. And he has done what he was sent to do, and now he's passing the torch on to young Elijah, whom he has mentored. Young Elijah doesn't want him to go. He does not feel it all ready or worthy to walk in this great prophet's footsteps. But now, Elijah, now old, knows and trusts that it is God's plan. And it takes as much faith to pass the torch as it does to carry it. It's kind of like a summer sunset that colors the earth. What we accomplish with the time we have, the big grand gestures, the little kindnesses, and the moments of courage. It's God's plan will touch and illuminate everything. Every parent and grandparent is blessed to have the opportunity to make a difference in a little one's life, to teach them to live with honor and integrity, love and truth, to pass on to them family stories and wisdoms, help them see the beauty around them and within them, teach them to care for the earth and for themselves and each other, to have self-respect and keep growing and trusting in goodness in God's plan. The gift of time helps us not take for granted even one day on the path before us. Today's gospel began when the days drew near for Jesus to be taken up. He set his face to go to Jerusalem. Here he's going to be crucified, but this was the path to passing the torch, the flame of love that burned brightly in him from God. And that helps us understand why Jesus responds as he did to people who said, "Yes, I will follow you, but not today. First I have to do other things, albeit important things." It sounds harsh when Jesus says, "Let the dead bury the dead." But what he means is, don't put off faith in me. The time is now. You need this now, not tomorrow. You don't have tomorrow. You have today. And today, I pass to you this torch, this word of life. Take it into the important things you speak of, and let it transform you and even your priorities. A bloodline of boat builders together created Ellis Boat Company. They make beautiful custom boats. I've seen one of them. They're wonderful. And all of the knowledge and experience that Ralph Ellis acquired through his years as a master boat builder, he's passed down to his son, who is now the president, Don, of Ellis Boat Company. It started simply as a scent around his father as a toddler of cedar that he grew attached to and loved. It's not only the beautiful work they do, it's the integrity and the work ethic with which they work. In a simple quote, son said of his father, "I will put my shop, Dad, up against your know-how." And they did. In the church, Christ encourages us to do the same, to work together and value each other's experience and wisdom, to custom build a community where good things flourish and are built to last. Here you see the Canadian Torch Relay team. In Red Deer, Alberta, in February of this year, Canada Winter Games, 100 inspiring young Canadian athletes were named as torchbearers in the National Canada Games Torch Relay for their positive impact on their communities. They got their initial flame on October 4th in 2018 from the Centennial Flame on Parliament Hill, carrying it across the country. We get our flame from Christ, from our parents, our ancestors, and in Canada from our heritage, and we carry it across the landscape of our lives. To close, Clarence Cullen said wisely, "My father didn't tell me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it." Someone is always watching us, and we hope they will see in us the flame of love, the torch of Christ's word, the truth that we live by, and that also makes us blessed to be Canadian, to live in a country of freedom to speak, worship, live our faith, and keep carrying a torch, a flame of love that burns so bright. Amen. Now I'm going to invite Mercer to come forward. Should it be from here? Is this where? Okay. Just wait for a moment.
I lived with my mom and my dad and my brother. I moved to Highview Apartments on October the 1st, 2015. I was excited for this day. My mom had cancer, but then when I knew my mom wasn't doing well, she was in the hospital, and I would go and see her at the hospital. It would be hard for me, but when she had to go, it was hard for me to say bye to her. I was there for her last breath. She kept going, I kept going to see her, and then her last words were, "Roz, keep having music in you." Before I met Brian, I could not play any song on the keyboard. So then in August 2016, my life changed again. I went to Studio of Arts Rock School, where I met Brian and Anita. In August 2018, I went to Disney World with Brian and Anita, and Linda and Mary Jane, and Sean and Nicole, friends of Brian and Anita's. That was a lot of fun. Every Monday, Brian comes and teaches me how to play on the keyboard. At my old church, I would be up in the balcony putting a TV on, but I could not read any of the songs, so I just played on my iPad. I was never in a choir. Until now. Thanks, St. John's Anglican Church and choir for letting me be part of this choir. I hope I can go to Disney World this year again. Thanks for listening to me, and God bless you all. Love, Roz.
All right, just a quick note on Roz first. Roz's mother, a beautiful lady, and she is the person who kept singing with Roz, and the music just emanates from her. So when her mother passed, that was the loss of life and the life of music and joy. The search was then for Roz to find music. And Roz, you put me up on this pedestal. I don't belong on the pedestal. What I will say is your love of music and your workers who realized this girl needs music in her life, and as a team, you found us. And then from us, you found St. John's. And now you're part of two more families. You're part of Steve Duarte's family, you're part of St. John's family. So your mom has taken really good care of you and helped find music, and that's a wonderful resurrection story. This is my wife, Anita. I think most of you know. And my resurrection story has two parts. Anita's is the big one, the big resurrection story. My resurrection story was being on a roller coaster with me. So our story, it goes back to the fall of 2009, and there were some build-ups to what ended up happening. So I'm going to need to just talk about the lead up to where we're going.
And the lead up from the fall of 2009 is going to kind of have a significant mark in April of 2010. Okay? And just to give you the assurance, knowing that I didn't have a fatal illness that many other people would, in April of 2010 I had a diagnosis of major depression and anxiety. So if we rewind to September of 2009, at that time I was a professional, full-time teacher in a school that was a really busy school, and I was a kindergarten teacher. And at the time, the intake of students at that point was supposed to be every other day. They would come to school, and I would teach one group one day and one group the next day, alternating. And the enrollment that year was so high and unanticipated that both of my days were well over the maximum number of students. So I taught 30 kindergarten students on one day and 30 kindergarten students on the second day, over and over and over again, until sometime after Thanksgiving when a new teacher was brought in and the class sizes were brought down. So in my work life, of which Brian has always said to me, I do it 150%, I was working really, really hard, and I had...
just put it there too, when Anita was working with that part of the school, she was only supposed to have one class every other day, but the school board did not have a second teacher to fill that position. So they had to go through a whole hiring process. So she was doing everything to hire what two full-time teachers would do.
Yeah. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
And I had a lot of skills to bring to that, and I there was a lot of success in that. And so I am thankful for that and proud of the community I worked with, and it was fantastic. As it happened to be, the community itself was amazing. The stressors in that year continued because it was at a school that was closing, which moved in the middle of December. This is the French immersion story of Wellington Street School that moved to over to Pierre-Louis Trudeau. At the same time, Brian's life with Studio Arts was doubling in size. He added a new location that particular year. And our oldest son was coming up on his graduation from elementary school. And the other one is only a year behind that. So contextually, my sort of world, and I was a highly perfectionistic person. Very, very driven. And I'm still in therapy about that. I'll say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I also had a circumstance in my lifetime that created a perfect storm. So as much as people will say, why did you have a breakdown? How did it happen that you completely fell apart in April 2010? Like in front of everyone. And there's not only one specific reason, there's a lot of things that brought that into play. The professional environment that I was in right at that time and the stressors involved in that. You know, parenting is a big deal. And my kids entering high school had some personal triggers for me because I have some trauma in my past. So some of that is contained to my high school life, which they were coming up to. And before that, statistically, I'm one of the people who lost a parent before I was 10 years old in a trauma. So my father died in an accident suddenly, and he was gone. And my mom did an amazing job of raising us through the rest of the 80s. He died in 1982, and then the 90s, and then I met this guy and married him in 1993 at the age of 20 years old. Statistically, getting married that young has some drawbacks to it. He's a good guy, totally worked out, it's great. However, I wasn't fully developed as an individual person, having had a pretty rough sort of life circumstances. I had a lot of privileges in my life as well. I was never struggling for financial means, and I was a highly intelligent academic who was an overachiever, so school wasn't a problem. I have some talents that were nurtured early on for music, and so I had a lot of things that I was able to go along with, and people just thought, that gal is going to go far. She's going, she's doing her stuff, and she's got it. So if you add all of those things together, and we kind of get to around 2010 in January, I started being pretty weepy, and I remember that I was tired a lot, exhausted. That had a lot of easy to name reasons that I was so fatigued. Around March break, for teachers who know what it's like to be off on March break, we were cleaning the garage, and I'm having a total meltdown in the garage. Not just because the garage needed so much help, because it really actually did, but I was so emotionally just not recognizing how off the mark I was, because I was as educated of a woman as I was and am. I was not educated about mental illnesses.
I'm going to insert in here. Anita, can you tell us what was happening inside your brain? What was physically, chemically happening over that period that led up to April 2010?
So I didn't know this until I had the professional help of a psychiatrist who was amazing. I had a team of this psychiatrist, Dr. Thomas, plus a counselor who continues to work at St. Thomas, and support. So I just need to say that any of what I'm able to share with you now comes because I can look backwards at the situation. So what I learned from Dr. Thomas was that throughout the period of time that we're speaking of, that I was in overdrive, the chemicals that are stress chemicals, so cortisol, which everybody produces, was constantly being produced and at too high of a level. So that is the hormone and chemical that is going on all the time, that then overpowered melatonin and things that would make me sleep. So I would not sleep. For extended periods of time, I didn't sleep. So cortisol doing that, and then the serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine became less and less and less available to my brain. Whether they were being produced as they do, or they weren't being absorbed the way they need to be. Nobody has that crystal ball look inside of the brain per se, or at least we haven't really developed that technology, made it accessible. But those are the chemical pieces that were being depleted and depleted and depleted while cortisol took over. And my adrenal glands, which everybody produces adrenaline, they, in combination with that, just rev everything. So all of that combined, science-wise, leads to, on the outside, inability to sleep, not able to eat, not able to control any emotions, and ultimately not able to feel any emotions.
So envision Anita's brain as if someone is holding, you're holding up this glass of water that's full. Most people, when you have a day at work, hard day at work, you go home, you put glass down, shake it out, you get the feeling back in your arm, and then the next thing you pick it up and you hold it. When it starts getting Anita never put it down, and her brain, well, if you don't, then the arm stops working, the fingers stop working. You can't grab the glass, you can't, it just stops. You lose function of that arm. Crash.
Big crash. So in April of 2010, it became absolutely evident I had lost so much weight so fast, unexplained. I couldn't think, I couldn't remember my postcode, it became alarming to me that I couldn't come up with information that I was supposed to know, and so I went to the doctor, who immediately took me off of work. And as that very driven and super committed teacher, I was horrified that she said I'd be off work for 10 days. Ultimately, it was 10 months before I was given any kind of okay to re-enter the working world. What do you want to say about that part?
Again, at that time, we had no idea what was going on. The term mental illness was brought up, but the stigma that's involved with that was there's extreme fear on both of our parts that if the term mental illness and Anita came up, she would lose her job. We were afraid she would no longer be a teacher, that she would have that income growing up. So there was a how do we deal with this? How do we handle it? And for months, Anita wasn't part of what happened, because with the crash, there came some distortions.
That was the biggest, most debilitating thing that happened, was distortions. And so this is where when Brian says that there's two stories of resurrection, I would not be here without him.
I drove.
See that sense of humor? He uses it on me every day to gauge whether I laugh or I don't laugh. Because I am a successful, recovered person from a devastating episode of mental illness. I still have chronic mental illness. I still have medication. I still have strategies and therapies and daily struggles with my chronic illnesses. And he can tell in the morning whether I respond to his classic jokes. They're classic. The ones that make me authentically laugh, he can tell in certain months of the year, and anyone who is on this cycle with me will know that there's a thriving season when the sun is shining and I can be outside, and I can be doing the sorts of things that fill me, and I have life-giving and lots of good chemicals going. I am a fun person to hang out with, and I laugh a lot. Not so fun in February. And that usually starts earlier in February, but he's able to watch and see where I'm at and start to say, you know, what are we going to add to the mix? How many times is he going to get me to Florida? You notice that he gets to Florida quite a bit. Yeah, big part of that. So in order to make sure that I stay healthy enough through the winter, not to have a downslide. So that's the ongoing story part. But if I could turn it towards yourself for the resurrection piece, I will summarize by saying that because I had the professional and personal support that I had, I did not die from depression. And I nearly died from depression. So at some time, which maybe isn't today, but I would share with anyone who ever wanted to know what is it like right up to the time where the person dies from their illness and that suicide happens. I have a lot of personal experience with what that was like for me, and it happens to be similar to other people, but it's personalized to myself. He had to live with leaving our house every day and not know what he was going to find when he came home. So as much as it was my darkest time in my life to date, I would put myself through it again before I would ask my kids to witness it or Brian to have to manage it again. To that level. They're always going to have to manage me forever, and they do that with a lot of love, and it changed everyone. Everyone is stronger for it, and there's a gratitude for our experience that we don't want to relive, but we are thankful that it happened. It made us better. My life has changed. My lifestyle has changed. My ability to feel compassion is extraordinarily changed. So, what Brian had, though, and I think it's really important for you to, because he tells the stories when he says the arm out of the glass, and he has a roller coaster story. And I know that it was important for you to find that story at the time, and it's been the most important story to people who you've told it to since. Can you talk about that?
When the crash happened, and the time frame of that of being diagnosed in April until Thanksgiving weekend, so it was 6 months when Dr. Thompson had said at the end of that 6 months coming through, Anita, I was scared. I didn't think you were going to pull out of that. I didn't think it was coming.
She had more options, though. I'll just say that in terms of the science. She said, give me enough time to find the right chemicals for you. There were a lot of trials that weren't the right chemicals and the right medication for me. She wanted enough time, but she did admit that that was ours.
Now, one of the things that brought me to my resurrection story had to do is when I started seeing and experiencing from Anita distortions of how she viewed reality. They went from very light to very dark. So here's an example of light. I would come home someday and I would bring in some flowers, put them on the table. And Anita would look at the flowers and she'd be furious with me because I was trying to show the boys that I'm a good guy and she's a bad person. I was villainizing her. Don't bring flowers. We were, in Anita's mind, we were going to lose everything. We were going to lose our home, our cars. We were financially done. I had spent and spoiled everything. There was nothing left. I set up an appointment for Anita to come and meet our financial guy in Strathroy. And we went down, and Chris did a wonderful job of explaining and showing where we were at for pension-wise, and it's all good. And we got in the car, and Anita heard none of that. We did not have our sons' college and university savings in a bank waiting to be used. We were failures.
And I had the paranoia that Brian and Chris had concocted what they said to me to placate me and try to make me think everything was okay, even though it wasn't. This goes very loopy down in, bank papers in front of me, numbers meant nothing.
I was on this ride. Suddenly I'm going up on the ride, and then it's like, ooh, down really, really fast. Making turns. I didn't know when the turns were coming, so for me, I would look at comparing it to Space Mountain, which is a roller coaster business in the dark. You don't know when you're going up, you don't know when you're going down, you don't know when you're turning. Then came the realization of this roller coaster, and Jim Innes was a huge help on this one for helping me work this, get through this, but he's the one who pointed out, Brian, you have the choice. of life get caught up in. And this is to do with everything. It's politics, it's climate change, it's everything, our jobs. We ride the roller coaster, the up and down, the emotion, and get caught up. Brian, you can get off the roller coaster, and you can watch from the gate. I can step off that emotional roller coaster part, have boundaries around me. I can watch me to go up and down and around and around. I can wave and smile, and I'm just going to wait right here at the gate. I could have left the park. Sorry, hon, I can't run that one.
And I have no judgment for anyone whose partnership ends through an episode like this, because leaving the park may have been what you had to do in order to not continue to be in this.
Do what I could to be supportive and loving, give the boys all the support I could, but I was going to be at that gate for whatever happened. Thanksgiving weekend, Anita looked at me and said, I love you. I said, no, I really love you. It's coming back. The start of resurrection. Our lives have changed. We appreciate life. To give to each other. We no longer have wedding vows of, I promise to do this, this, and this. This goes both ways. Anita can leave anytime she wants. My goal as a person is to keep this relationship so fun and engaging that she doesn't want to leave.
Me too. And we're in year 26 right now. And sometimes when I'm talking with people and my friends and stuff, I have, that 20-year-old who married Brian, who's a good guy. Like, he's a good guy. I got to marry him again, and we didn't come completely apart, and that's an incredibly beautiful piece of things, which I appreciate and cherish, and I am making life as interesting for you as possible, and fun is good, and that you will want to be here too. It's an honor to sit here and be witnessed by you. And I didn't know Brian was going to speak this morning until about 9:45 a.m. I think the divine has so much love for all of us. And so it feels right to be here with you and share this. I trust you. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for being Brian's amazing community.
Closing out, Janet. Sure, I'll learn that song for your funeral, but I was hoping you're going to speak at mine.
Oh, yeah. No, we're not done.
So far into the future.
This was holy ground that here, what you did, we wouldn't have missed a second of it.